Hello and welcome to the quiz review video. All right, I'm going to walk you through hopefully each one of these problems, or at least show you the answer to all of them to help you study for your quiz on inequalities. All right, our second quiz of the year. So it's going to be a mixture of just regular inequalities and also compound inequalities, which, excuse me, we'll see on the back. All right, so the first couple here are already done for you. The most important thing is to show your work, and when you distribute, watch your signs. All right, make sure you get all your negative signs in there. That's the biggest mistake I've been seeing in class. All right, so as long as you do that and combine like terms, you should be okay, and just be careful if you have to multiply or divide by a negative. The first one here, we end up with y is greater than or equal to 1. All right. And so that's a closed circle, remember? Closed circle when it's equal to. And since it's greater than or equal to, we're shading to the right. Notice the infinities here. Okay, Mrs. Cabarro, what's this trick? If you put positive infinity on this end and negative infinity on this end, it'll help you with your interval notation, because I know that's the new part this year for most of us, all right? So it might be the toughest to grasp right now is the interval notation. So you just, in this case, start with 1, all right, with a bracket. Notice a bracket because it's equal to. It includes 1, and then it goes all the way to that infinity mark. So we go 1 with a bracket, comma, infinity, parenthesis, all right, because we can never get to infinity. So that's always seen with a parenthesis. Same with negative infinity. All right, so you can see that in the second one here. Notice we divided by a -2, the way that I set this problem up. All right, so we had to switch the sign from greater than to less than for the final answer. So k is less than -8. All right, and in this case, a less than is a open circle. It's an open circle, right? Strictly less than, so we shaded to the left. And interval notation, we're going to have negative infinity because now we start with that, all right, since it's approaching all the way to negative infinity. And it goes all the way up to -8. That's the max value here, okay? So negative infinity to -8, and that would be it. All right, so now that you've seen those, hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. All right. In the third one, you got to be careful because we multiplied by a -3 in the first step, all right, to get rid of that fraction. And by doing that, we have to not only distribute on the right-hand side to get -3x minus 3, but we also have to flip that inequality symbol because we multiplied by a negative. So we go from greater than to less than once again. All right, so whether you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to flip that sign. And don't fear the fractions. You are allowed fractions and decimals. I would just reduce this fraction, simplify and leave it as an improper. X is less than -8/3. So if I was to graph this, once again, think what type of circle. It's strictly less than, it's not equal to. So we need an open circle here on -8/3. All right. You can include some other values here if you want. We could put 0 over here. All right. And we could put maybe -5 down here just to show which direction we're going. If you want to throw your negative infinity on there and your positive infinity, just to remember. And since it's less than, we're going to shade to the left. So once again, for interval notation, I'm going to go negative infinity to -8/3, both with parentheses. All right. And number 4 is mostly done as well. We just need to graph this and get the interval notation. So this one, no fraction, but we have a less than or equal to 17. All right, so I'll put 17 here. We can put 15, 16, 18, 19. We want a closed circle here on 17. Closed circle, less than or equal to tells us shade left. All right, you'll get the hang of these after a while. We know this is approaching that negative infinity mark, all right, which means we have a parenthesis, negative infinity, and then all the way up to 17. It's equal to 17, though. We have to include that number, so there's the bracket. All right, so that's interval notation. That's really the interval notation in a nutshell, okay? I know it's new, but just keep practicing it. The more you write it, the easier it will become, all right? Why don't you try 5 real quick? You can pause the video and try 5, and then we'll go through the answer. Okay, so hopefully you gave this one a shot. Just like in number 4, we have a double distributive property on one side of this inequality. So make sure you watch the negative signs there. Negative times negative is a positive. And this is a step I wanted to go over because some students are confusing this. We want to combine like terms. So when they're on the same side, just combine them. I like to underline my like terms. All right, so I'll rewrite the left-hand side. Negative 8m minus 12 is greater than. Now I have negative 5m and negative 3m. They combine for negative 8m. Plus 40 and 21 is 61. All right, so you just want to combine like terms when they're on the same side. Don't be adding and subtracting terms on single sides. All right, what you do to one side, you must do to the other side. Okay, the golden rule of algebra, must keep the equations balanced. Now, if you notice here, we have negative 8m on both sides. So that works out pretty nicely. Look at that. They cancel out. See you later. We get negative 12 is greater than 61. We really don't need to move anything else at this point. We just have to determine, is this a true statement or a false statement? Is negative 12 greater than 61? Well, it's not. A negative is not greater than a positive, right? So I'm going to say that is a false statement, which means no solution, right? We can still have those special cases, all right, even with inequalities, just like we had with equations. If the variables cancel out and we get a false statement, it's no solution. All right, so we really can't graph anything since there's no solutions. Interval notation, well, it's the empty set, all right? There's no possible value that will make that inequality true. All right, if you had the contrary, if you had the, let's say this was a less than, rather, negative 12 is less than 61, then it would be a true statement, and it'd be all real numbers. You would shade the entire number line, all right? But in this case, no solution. Okay, so moving on to the word problem here. Okay, leading up to Word Problem Wednesday, our favorite day of the week, besides maybe Fun Quiz Friday. All right, Brett has $30 online gift voucher. Okay, gift cards are great. So he's trying to buy books, as many as he can. Books are $4, $4 each. I'm going to call X the number of books. X equals number of books that Brett is buying. So it's a $4 book, so 4x, plus there is a single shipping charge of $2. That's something worth underlining or highlighting. Single shipping charge, so watch the key words there. 4x plus 2, that's just a one-time fee. All right, and we're trying to figure out how many he can afford without spending more than the gift voucher, so he can't go over 30. So if that's the max, we need less than or equal to $30. 4x plus 2 is less than or equal to 30. Can't spend more than the $30 that we have, all right? So from here, we solve it just like an equation or, a typical inequality here. So 4x is less than or equal to, once we subtract $2, that shipping charge, all right, then we have 28 here. So final step is to divide by 4 on both sides. X is less than or equal to 7 books. All right, so it says, once again, how many books can he afford without spending more than his gift voucher? Well, that would be 7. That would be the maximum amount of books that Brett can buy. So I will write over here 7 books. All right, so there's your word problem. Just set them up, define your variables. All right, set up your inequality and solve. That's all it is. And then just, read those key words in order to figure out which symbol or sign you're using for your inequality. Okay, so in this case, it was at most $30. That's less than or equal to. If it's at least $30, then it could be greater than or equal to. We would flip that one. All right, and we'll get better with those with more practice. All right, so flipping to the back. Sorry, this video is getting a bit lengthy. All right, it's just want to be thorough here for the inequality quiz, all right, in case we have some questions or difficulty with this review. So with the compound inequalities, when you see an or, I just split it down the middle and solve these individually, all right? And this sheet has a slight typo on it. I believe the one online is corrected, but this is technically number 7, and then we'll go from there, but that's besides the point. All right, we're going to add 7 on both sides. Get negative 2x is greater than 8. We divide by a negative 2. So something should be switching in our brain here, right? We got to flip the sign to a less than. Negative 4. All right, and then we solve this one by just adding 2. Pretty simple. So x is greater than or equal to 1. All right, so from here, we just need to graph it. Let me put negative 4 here. Let me put 1 up here. All right, we have an open circle on negative 4, and it's less than, so we're shaded to the left. and a greater than or equal to 1. So we have closed circle on positive 1, shaded to the right. We have the oars on the boat pointing outward. That's what we want. And interval notation here, well, if you want to include these, remember you got negative infinity and positive infinity. We will see both of them with this or compound inequality. It goes negative infinity to negative 4, both parentheses. Okay, and then union, remember union means we're combining these. And then we have a bracket on 1, and that approaches infinity as well. Positive infinity, that is. And that's your interval notation, all right? Pause the video and try 7. Okay, so hopefully you got 7. It's a similar one. All right, it's another or compound inequality. I have negative infinity to negative 5 with a bracket here for interval notation, union 2 to infinity, and that's parenthesis, all right? Since it was a is greater than 2, or a is less than or equal to negative 5, all right? So just be careful once again with the negatives, flipping your signs around. If it's ever not shaded out for the ors, you might want to double check your work. Something probably went wrong, all right? Or maybe you forgot to flip a sign. And if you can't squeeze all these in with on this paper, feel free to use some additional scrap paper, all right? Looking at the and, sometimes you'll see the word and where you can split it up and solve it like we did the ors, all right? Other times you'll see it like down here in the bottom left where it's just written all together, all right? And some of those on the homework the other day from last week were pretty complex with variables on each side. Those ones would be considered extra credit and I wouldn't worry too much about. If you have questions or you want to see how they're done, just shoot me an email or a comment, all right, on Google Classroom. You would basically just split them up by covering up one side at a time, solving them individually, like up here, and then we would combine them in the end for a graph. So once again, those are more just extra credit, and you wouldn't have to worry about those, so to speak, all right? But this one, I would just add 9 on both sides to get 10n is greater than negative 50. Divide by 10. I think you got it from here. On the right-hand side, just add 6. N is less than or equal to 9. All right, so from here, we're going to get n is greater than negative 5 and n is less than or equal to 9. So we get an open circle on negative 5. We get a closed circle on 9. And contrary to the ors, these are going to get shaded in the middle. All right, since it's greater than negative 5, we go to the right. It's less than or equal to 9. We go to the left, and they meet, and that's it. So interval notation is much easier. We just have to watch for parentheses here at negative 5, and then going to 9, but with a bracket since it's closed. All right, so always double check. Closed circle is a bracket, open circle is parenthesis. But that's it, all right? You could write them all together. If you want to put the n in the middle, it would be greater than negative 5 and less than or equal to 9. That's mostly how you'll see them written. All right, so we'll do number 10, and then I'll leave, or technically 11, but we'll leave the rest for you to figure out, all right, and check your answers. So we'll start by subtracting 7. We got to work inside out. And what we do to one part of this inequality, we have to do to each part of the compound inequality. So I'm going to subtract 7 from each side, the left, the right, and the middle. So we get we get positive 30. Positive 30 is greater than negative 6x, which is greater than negative 24. Okay, from here we have one more step, and that's divide by negative 6. Divide each side by negative 6. All right, hopefully you can see this okay. And after that, well, we just divided by a negative, so first of all, we got to flip these signs around, which is going to make it look a little more traditional. All right, and negative divided by negative is a positive 4, so here we go. Now it looks like the inequality, the compound inequality I just wrote in the last example. So from here, I'm going to go negative 5. I'll put positive 4 up here. Well, we don't see any equal to signs, right? No lines underneath those less than and greater than signs. So we're going to go just open circle on negative 5, open circle on 4, shaded in the middle. All right, since it's greater than negative 5 and less than 4, and interval notation is simply negative 5 to 4, both with parentheses since it's two open circles. All right, and that's about it. Let's pause the video, try 9 and 11, or 10 and 12 technically, and then check your answers. Okay, check real quick. Number 9, we had an or. We should have the graph shading outward. 2 closed circles. Double check your interval notation. Negative infinity to negative 7. Bracket, union, bracket, negative 4 to infinity. All right. And the last one here, had to multiply by 3 in the first step. Get rid of the fraction. From there, subtracted 9 to each part and then divided by negative 1. So we did have to flip each one of those inequality symbols. We still got an and compound inequality. Closed circle on 0, open on 6, shaded in the middle. So interval notation is bracket 0 to 6, parenthesis. All right. So hopefully this helps for your quiz review. I know it's probably the longest video we've had so far this year, but I think it was worthwhile, and you don't have to watch the whole thing. I'll try to post that in the Google Classroom before you start watching the entire thing, but just, fast forward to whichever ones you struggle with, and hopefully it helps you out for the quiz. All right. Any questions, like always, reach out. Okay. Have a great day, everybody.